And I want to introduce a man who needs no introduction, but to our brothers from the different resistance movements, another champion of freedom and of the resistance cause in other countries oppressed by the new fascism, Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart. Mario.
Thank you, Orlando. Thank you so much. Let me obviously first thank you and El Directorio and the University of Miami and all of you for being here. I would be remiss without first, however, I was moved by the words of my friend and colleague. And I always learn from that champion of freedom. But more than being moved by the words, I am inspired by her actions. So thank you, the model of what legislators are supposed to be. Thank you, Ileana Ros-Lehtinen. Thank you. So this event, which brings together, frankly, experts and activists and witnesses as to how best to promote democracy and freedom and human rights for people who are facing oppression and repression right now. By the way, from within, in some cases, as the case of Cuba and Syria and Venezuela and Iran, or from without, as the case of Ukraine and its invasion by Russia. These brutal regimes, they have formed very dangerous, they're cross-continental ties. They have strong alliances. Iran has aided, as Ileana Ros-Lehtinen said, has aided Assad in brutalizing the Syrian people. Iran and Venezuela have helped to bankroll the Cuban dictatorship. And then Cuba has extended its tentacles deeply into Venezuela's intelligence, its military, its all its institutions, and you see its tactics, Cuba's tactics now being unleashed on the brave Venezuelan people. The ties between these brutal dictatorships are strong. They join together in mutual desire and interest to maintain a tight grip on power and they do it through a variety of different ways. They do it financially, they do it militarily, they do it diplomatically, they do it by training and instructing each other and learning from each other the tools of oppression and repression and of cruelty. So that's why I'm so grateful for this today. Events such as these are key because the rest of us, those of us who are on the side of freedom, on the side of those who are fighting for freedom, we must also continue to build alliances, but obviously of a different type, of a totally different nature. We must unite to help fight and struggle and push for human rights and for democracy. We must get together with like-minded freedom fighters from all across the globe. And where brutal, oppressive regimes, when they join together to cling to power at any cost, we must join together to promote democracy, to promote transitions towards democracy, to help the civil society, to help those freedom fighters. And we must and we can do that. And we need to unite, by the way, to fight for tyranny and to fight together and work against tyranny wherever it pops its ugly head. And we know that the pro-freedom movement, they are under assault in each of the countries represented here today. Massacres against innocent men and women and children continue in Syria, with the death toll reaching as high as 150,000 people, and the world, for the most part, has looked the other way and has given a green light. Repression in Cuba has escalated exponentially, with more than 1,000 political arrests each month this entire year. And as pro-democracy activists are jailed and beaten and harassed and sometimes murdered, as Ileana Ros-Lehtinen said, the Cuban dictatorship was caught last year supplying weapons to North Korea. The mullahs in Iran, they continue their suppression of dissent, while, by the way, aiding terrorist organizations around the world and rogue, dangerous regimes around the world, and advancing its nuclear weapons programs. And for the most part, the world tries to just look the other way and find excuses. And in the Ukraine, We see the struggle against a creeping Russian invasion across its borders. And we see very little serious response. And to echo what my colleague said, because it has to be said, look, while our administration in this country has largely, frankly, failed to even attempt to really confront these dictatorships or these dictators, these lack of human rights, or stand up for the courageous activists who today are risking everything for freedom. Rest assured that in Congress, the United States Congress does understand what's going on. And in Congress, frankly, it's not a partisan issue. In the House, we passed the Ukraine Support Act to sanction Russia and certain Russian oligarchs and to provide financial assistance and NATO cooperation and other means of support to the Ukraine. But we need to and we will do more. We have passed resolutions expressing solidarity with the people in Venezuela, and we've condemned the violence there of the Maduro thugs. We've done that. But my colleague Ileana Roslin and I and others are looking at what our next step is, and you're going to see us doing more. Congress strongly supports tougher new sanctions, additional sanctions against the thugs in Iran, not weakening the current regime of sanctions. And Congress supports greater assistance to the pro-democracy movement within Iran. So again, while the administration's actions are, well, pale and frankly often disappointing, there are so many in Congress. By the way, really a bipartisan majority in Congress who stand in complete solidarity with the people of Iran, of Syria, of the Ukraine, de Venezuela, de Cuba. We stand with those folks, with those people in their quest for freedom. So I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank all of you for doing what you're doing, for not losing hope. And at times when it looks like sometimes we are very much alone, just remember, as you know, that while this struggle may be long, ultimately, I'm absolutely convinced that in these countries that we mentioned and others, freedom will return, freedom will reign, and the future leaders of those countries are precisely those who are currently in prison, who are receiving the beatings, and who are the ones that we must always do everything we can to help. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for keeping up the fight. Thank you for your solidarity. And together, democracy will reign. Thank you so very much. Gracias.